Greetings, everyone. Hope all of you are having an absolutely fantastic day. I've made a couple of videos complaining about what I see as the lack of marketing for Avowed. Before we even get into this video, I want to say I found the response to my last video absolutely fascinating. I felt like the envoys that have been shown thus far were, to be honest, mediocre, and that the character creation looked mediocre, but it's pretty clear that many of you do not agree, and you feel like the models either look great or very, very serviceable considering the type of game Avowed is. So honestly, I'm really happy to hear that. I want this game to succeed. I want as many people to play it as possible. So the fact that you all, or at least it seems like a good number of you, are not nearly as critical of the character creation features as I am, hey, that absolutely works for me. And then to top it all off, looks like Avowed has gotten a little bit more marketing the past couple of days, and so I thought I'd make another video and walk through some of it with you. So first and foremost, they released a Twitter post that has this screenshot, and caption is, "Welcome to Dawn Shore, the most populated region on the southwestern coast of the Living Lands, home to the continent's biggest city, Paradis. Paradis is the last safe city that's settled by fugitives, wanderers, and exiles. The beginnings of a strange plague are showing in the region's outskirts." I think this art is fantastic. I believe it's actually one of the loading screens that you can see in the game, but this is just absolutely beautiful, great stuff. The color contrast here that you can see really draws in your eyes. I just think this stacks up with some of the best art Obsidian has done. Really, really cool, and makes you excited to be able to explore this world. Now, moving on from that, there's a pretty substantive article that has been released regarding Avowed on the 24th. Now, mind you, it's released on Xbox Wire. So, of course, it's being released by the company that owns my Avowed. And so it's all about how great Avowed is and you should play it and et cetera, right? But I still feel like there are some really interesting tidbits that are dropped here that do a great job of marketing the game and make me excited to play it. So I thought I'd share it with all of you. Now, if we head to the summary, it says Avowed offers players an incredible level of freedom and quest. Choices in Avowed can affect character relationships, and a reminder, Avowed is launching February 18th, 2025. Speaking of which, quick reminder, if you haven't already, go ahead and hit that like button for me. Let me know that you're enjoying this content. Moving on, the first part is just a little bit of introduction, and then we get into a screenshot that I don't think we've seen as of yet, with our main character walking with Kai in the city. It seems like Kai is the first party member you get. I'm really interested to find out how long you have to stick with just him, and even more importantly, how long it takes for you to get a full squad. It seems like we have very, very little content with some of the later party members, and I know there's only 4. So I wonder if it's a situation where for the vast majority of the game, you're going to have Kai and Giada as your party members, which to me would be unfortunate. I feel like a hallmark of Pillars is that you have a wide array of party members to choose from, but Avowed is a different type of game. Usually in these type of games, you don't have any party members whatsoever, so hey, I'll take what I can get. Moving on, there are choices you can make and consequences of actions you can take or not take, whether they are forecasted to you or not, that will impact the future of entire settlements, individual people, groups of people, the whole spectrum, basically. And this is from Region Director Berto Richter. And the author goes on to say, one of those quests in the city of Paradis involved a group of Zards forcing a local settler out of her home. This quest alone has a variety of outcomes. You could go straight forward and fight them in her home, or play it more stealthily and scout the location to report back on what you discover. but as with many Obsidian design quests, there's a bit more hiding under the surface. If you decide to pry more information out of her, and that was the case here, I uncovered a more spiritual connection to the Zarabs that I was not expecting. This, as much as anything, encompasses Obsidian's philosophy. The more you engage, the more you should get in return. I love those types of games that give you surface level quest objectives, but if you're willing to talk to people more, to read notes, to really dig in and figure out what's going on, all of a sudden alternative solutions or additional information opens up for you that can provide additional outcomes. Really, really cool stuff, and I hope Avowed works that way throughout your entire playthrough. My inclination is always to leave as much as possible for the player to discover, says narrative designer Kate Dollahide. Quick side note, I love the name Dollahide. I don't know why, but to me, Dollahide just sounds like a mob boss. Hey, you sure you want to mess with us? We work for Dollahide. You don't want them kind of problems. Anyway, when a world is easily digested and added to the player, it takes away a lot of mystery because there's less to find. We want the content to be legible so players know what's going on and how to move through quests. But I don't want the correct answer to be obvious every time. It's like a conversation between us, the designers, and the player. We give you a platform to have a conversation with us. We want you to engage in the conversation as much as we're engaging in it. We provide tools for that, but leave room for you to play the way you want. That all sounds fantastic. Those are exactly the type of games that I personally love to play, and it's very, very consistent with what we've come to expect from Obsidian. So once again, from a writing standpoint, most of what I've heard about Avowed is very, very good. It seems in line with other Obsidian games. And so that makes me excited because I believe consistently from a quest structure standpoint, Obsidian has always done well. Next up, we have a screenshot with Kai fighting what I believe is Zarab. Some of the clothing designs here look really, really cool. Like, I wasn't all that impressed with the armor from far away, but close up like this where I could see everything that goes into it, I actually really, really like it. And I'm looking forward to seeing what does some of the late game, really awesome looking armor look like. Now, earlier in the article, Obsidian mentioned that when they're designing quest and narrative, they work with short, medium, and long-term goals, depending on whether or not your choices are going to just impact the conversation or have long-term impacts over the entire game. And they've learned through iteration that sometimes these goals may be too hard to find for some players, so they would gradually layer in more hints, references, and suggestions. However, part of making choices feel personal is feeling as though they're opting into them. Obsidian doesn't want players to feel like they're being led around by the nose. It's a balancing act achieved through playtesting, iteration, and careful attention. When it comes to consequences, if every choice and outcome is entirely predictable, it's not necessarily rewarding because you miss that novelty, says the game director Carrie Patel. But if things feel like they're coming completely out of left field, it can be jarring. As the player, you are the protagonist of a story, and we want outcomes and consequences to feel earned. We hone this through a lot of iteration and internal testing to ensure we foreshadow choices, especially the big ones, and their consequences. Absolutely. I really dislike finding out that there's a massive, massive change that has occurred due to my choices, and it feels like it just has no connection with the information that I received as a player or what was happening in the story during that time. There's a couple of situations where something comes completely out of left field and I was like, oh, I didn't expect that, but it's actually pretty cool. But most of the time it feels kind of hollow. So it's good that they're going to keep things at least a little more organized. It's not that I have to know exactly what might happen, but I just have to feel like it makes sense when I see this change occur, or instead of feeling like, oh, you just throwing this curveball to kind of surprise me, but instead, it makes me feel like I've lost all agency in the story. Then there are also the personal choices you can make that will have deep consequences for individual characters or small groups of characters. There are choices that will impact how your companions feel about you and whether they will stick around, explains Richter. They will also react and respond to how you play side quests and main quests. Some of their quests are intrinsically tied to where the main story goes. They'll respond to how you decide certain things in quests and give you their thoughts. All of that is very exciting to me. I love when games allow for the possibility of failure and for the possibility for things to not go your way. I'm honestly not a big fan of games where the companions stick around with you regardless of what you do. It just doesn't feel realistic based on each party member having their own goals and things that they want and factions that they're aligned with. And so it's good to know that, at least hopefully, the party members will have their own thoughts regarding what you should do and how they want you to handle certain choices. And if you don't consistently align with that, there's a very real possibility that you're going to lose them. Definitely interested to see how this all works out. Next up is another screenshot that, again, I don't believe we've seen before, and this is Giada fighting an ogre. I loved ogres in the Pillars of Eternity series, the summon, where you could throw out two ogres and have them tear up enemies. It's probably my favorite summon across the entire series, so really cool to see this. I hope we get more quests with them, that we're able to talk with them. Usually you got the opportunity to converse with them and there was some way to peacefully resolve any aggression from their side. So I hope that we get similar opportunities here. We'll see. Now, I mentioned before, you only get 4 companions in this game, and they mentioned all 4 of the companions you encounter in Avowed are from the Living Lands, who you encounter as the story progresses to build up your party. They have an interest in what happens and the choices you make, which is why they're willing to tag along with you on your journey to make sure you don't make too much of a mess of things. So far, I've only played with Kai as a companion, a blue-skinned Amua, who often provided needed context about the Living Lands, commenting on locations, characters, creatures, and historical events during our time together. As a former soldier, he excels as a tank, soaking up damage, drawing enemy fire, and utilizing incendiary ammo. Learning more about the other companions and how they interact with us is one of the things I'm looking forward to discovering when the game comes out. Me too, I'm definitely interested in companions, both from a mechanical and a thematic standpoint. I'm really interested in this note about him constantly commenting on things, such as locations, characters, and creatures. I hope there's a ton of banter for these companions that you have. If you're only going to give us 4, then hopefully each one of them is really deep and has a lot of content. And so hopefully it'll be a hard choice in regards to who we bring along. Mechanically, as far as I know, you cannot give your companions specific gear. They do have their own skill tree, but it's significantly condensed from what you have. So it'll be interesting to see if it's still mechanically engaging to have these party members. That's obviously totally different from what we got in Pillars of Eternity, but this is a very different game. So I understand it a little bit more, but it'll just be interesting to find out, do we feel like these are full party members and characters who have their own, ability trees and interesting skills that we have to figure out how to use in the party? Or do we just throw people in and it's really all up to us to make things work? We'll find out. The material reality of the people living in this setting informs the actual stories being told, says Dollarhide. What does it look like when a colonial empire comes to your backwater island and says, "Hi, we're here and this is ours. Remember, you're the envoy coming on behalf of a completely different country. You were not born in the living lands. You are completely new to the living lands, and a lot of people will have negative reactions towards your presence there. So there should be a really cool dynamic of Avowed. When we're designing characters, quests, and content, we're not looking at them and saying, what type of character is this, or what's this person's trope? It's more about what they believe in, what they want, what influences what they want, and what they intend to do. It's much more about belief and necessity. For us, choice and consequences are not about every single thing you do affecting the heat death of the universe. It's about everything being believably built to, Patel adds. It's that variety in terms of the magnitude of your consequences and the time horizon on which you see those consequences. Finding ways to fulfill those consequences in ways that are believable but also surprising sometimes makes the experience feel fresh and encourages players to keep digging and see what they're going to find. Very, very cool stuff. I think that all sounds fantastic. I think it's really cool, like they mentioned earlier, that all of the party members are going to have stories that rope into the main quest. And so consequently, they're really, really going to care about what you decide to do, and they really care about your presence in the living lands. They are residents there. They care about this country. And so they care very much that you represent this foreign empire who is basically trying to say, we can do whatever we like here. Should create some really, really interesting relationships. And here we have another screenshot with Kai facing a beetle and a Zarup at the same time. That sword looks very familiar. It looks like kind of sword I used to give Adair all the time. They go on to say, I think it's a good pacing mechanism for these choices, meaning the fact that the game is not completely open world and instead deals in zones. We know roughly what you've done before you've gone to the next thing. It's still a very open structure within those zones where you could do whatever you want for the most part, but it's not one contentious area where you could be anywhere at any moment, says Richter. Obsidian can build on those experiences over time and manage the pacing accordingly. It also allows them to stay focused as designers to ensure they're delivering a coherent, thematically consistent story in each region by understanding the essence of each area. What are the stakes? Who are the main figures? What are the goals? What kind of choices would be presented to you? The zones in particular help maintain this focus. So I'm definitely of the opinion that Avowed benefits from not being open world. From the very first time that was announced, I didn't have a whole lot of confidence that Obsidian could pull it off. And so honestly, I'm glad that they've decided to go with the zones structure instead. Let's just be completely honest. I love Obsidian games. I think their stories are amazing. I think they've done incredible work. Fallout New Vegas, Nitro Republic 2, they have made some of my favorite games of all time. But Obsidian has a reputation for dropping games that are buggy upon launch. And this is in single player tight 20, 30 hour experiences, right? I didn't have a whole lot of confidence that if they made their own open world, that it would release in a stable format right up front. Whereas with Avowed, I think there's a much better chance that we're going to get a stable quality product right from the beginning. So personally, I'm happy they went this route. Designing choice to house this variety of outcomes is what brings me to one of the most fascinating aspects of what makes an Obsidian RPG like Avowed great. The sheer number of outcomes, choices, and consequences that you may never encounter. And the game design team is totally okay with that. It's something I encountered during a separate hands-on preview last year. In that instance, I was curious to see how far I could push a dialogue interaction with the Oracle, Sargamas. Without spoiling anything, the fact that it let me go as far down the rabbit hole as it did, effectively offer an opportunity to die in a very silly way, was both impressive and hilarious. And crucially, it didn't need to be there. Obsidian rewarded me with more dialogue, more story, simply for being curious. I was eager to learn more about the logic behind this approach. We know that for the players who find these secrets and experiences, it's going to give them that sense of delight and surprise that it sounds like you experience, Patel says. What makes RPG special and what makes our RPG special is the idea that we're building a lot of content. We know that no one player is going to have the exact same experiences, and part of what makes it fun and rewarding is when you find something and think, I found this on my own, and I wonder how many other people did. I absolutely agree, especially in a game like this, feeling like, whoa, I've uncovered a secret that probably the vast majority of players did not find. I felt that way all the time in Wrath of the Righteous. Is one of the reasons that I love that game, and I loved making content so much, because all the time I throw out a video and say, hey, did you see this interaction? And players would be like, whoa, I never saw this. How did you trigger this? All that kind of stuff. And so hopefully Avowed has a lot of sequences like that that are going to make players want to experience this game again and again. And this article did have another new screenshot. I might use this in the thumbnail now that I think about it, with the main character fighting Azora. Looks like pretty cool stuff, and looks like she's been handling business. And then finally, there's a screenshot of Paradis, which now that I'm thinking about it, it's probably pronounced Paradise, but whatever. Paradis, looking very much so like the concept art or portrait that we saw earlier. Really looking forward to being able to explore what looks like a fully realized city. Obsidian's objective is to explore a range of emotions, offering you the opportunity to engage deeply with different aspects of the game in whatever way you choose. Whether it involves extensive dialogue to learn more about the world or participate in combat simply for the thrill, Avowed is structured so that you can always focus on your preferred activities, be it combat, exploration, or conversation in the living lands. It all means that Avowed is shaping up to deliver one of the most deeply engaging and personalized gaming experiences this year, where your decisions will matter and each playthrough has the chance to be a truly unique experience. Obsidian's meticulous attention to detail and the thoughtful combination of choice and consequence that defines this remarkable game ensures your journey to Eora and the living lands will be a memorable one. Once again, Avowed is launching February 18th for Xbox and PC and will be available on day one with Game Pass. And that's it. That's the video. Again, I felt like that was a really cool piece of marketing. Gave us a lot of the information we want to know regarding Avowed. Would still love to see some new videos, some new gameplay. I would love for them to dive more into the mechanics before the game comes out. I don't feel like I have enough information to figure out how to build. So it'd be nice to get more information along those lines. But regardless, I'm excited. I'm hoping that the game is going to be good. Let me know down in the comments if there's any additional Avowed content you all looking forward to. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.